You feel bad for him, but that's what happened.
Yeah, absolutely feel for you. So look, we're going to go ahead and move on. Delilah, if you're ready, we're going to go ahead and go to the longest running segment on Let's Talk Football the Roundtable. Diversity with Delilah.
Hey.
Let's go.
Right,
and today, being it's Pride Month, we will be covering Michael Sam's.
Michael Sam.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right.
yeah.
So Michael Sam made headlines a few years ago because he was one of the first openly gay NFL players to play for NFL, but also he kissed his fiance live on TV. He's not the first gay NFL player. So again, I know he's not, but he's the first out and proud NFL player.
Mm-hmm.
From years past, a lot of the older players were closeted for various reasons, right? We already know kind of why, like the whole like football, machismo, all that stuff, right? We kind of, but he was out and proud before he was selected. So he came out in college, right? And so like he really was selected. And so I just wanted to make sure that as we're talking about diversity, right, we're talking again, making sure that, and again, I know that it's like, oh, it's Pride Month, and I'm not trying to token him. I'm going to go out there and say that. But I didn't want to pass this opportunity because he did rattle a lot of people.
Yes.
You know, he rattled a lot of people. You have to understand, this man was born and raised in Texas, in a small town in Texas.
I know that.
Okay, and then he went to school in Mizzou, right? He went to Mizzou, which is in Missouri. Again, very conservative, right? So again, and not just as an openly gay man, openly gay black man, right?
Yeah.
Which that already ends. If anybody knows about intersectionality, we know that, you know, if you are in the LGBTQ plus society, but you're also black, there's a lot more on top of you, right? Because you're dealing not just with homophobia, you're also dealing with racism, right? And so again, it's a double-edged sword. And so the fact that he, you know, he was willing to take that chance and be honest about who he was, I feel like, you know, we need to respect that. All right, so again, he attended high school in Hitchcock, Texas, right? Which again, tiny place.
Hitchcock.
Right, so you know, he began traveling with the school's varsity football team while he was an 8th grader. Okay, so before he went to high school, this is, you know, he was the water boy.
Yeah.
So he was the water boy. Yeah, I know, right? So he was the water boy.
H2O.
And then, I know, right? We can't help it, right? That we have to go there. We have to, right? But then, you know, finally, when he went to high school, he became a member of the team as a defensive end and offensive tackle. He earned in high school the first team all-district honors as a defensive lineman in all 4 years that he was in high school. And as an offensive lineman in his junior and senior years. So this kid could play, right? Sam was considered a 2-star college football recruit by Rivals.com. You know, the person that website kind of totals like when recruits are coming up. So they really assumed that he was going to go to all these places, but as we know, he didn't do great in the combine, and so that kind of dropped his numbers, right? So, so even though they expected him to go higher, but unfortunately, because he didn't do great in the combine, that kind of dropped his, you know, his grades. So that's kind of what happened with Sam in that regards. But even with that, like, you know, he was getting recruited before the draft by a bunch of, like, big-time universities. He wanted to go to Texas A&M, but they didn't offer him a scholarship. And so he ended up going to the University of Missouri, known as Mizzou. And so that's where he went for college football. He was there from 2009 to 2013. He played for the Tigers, competing in the Big 12 Conference. You know, he redshirted in his first year at Missouri. He recorded 3.5 quarterback sacks, 24 tackles, including 7 tackles for a loss, 2 forced fumbles, 1 interception. So basically, this kid came to college and was ready to play, right? In his sophomore year, Sam intercepted pass against the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Also, in 2012, Mizzou officially transferred into the SEC, right, the Southeastern Conference, and so that's when they finally became part of the SEC. Was in 2012. Again, he went on to record a bunch of stuff, half sacks while starting in 9 of the 10 games. So he always got at least half a sack, if not a full sack, while he was there. So again, as a senior in 2013, because we're thinking about seniors, right? Because that's when the drafts kind of start looking at you. He recorded 12 quarterback sacks, 19 tackles. He led the SEC in both categories and tied Missouri's single-season record for sacks. He was named the SEC Defensive Player of the Week in 2 consecutive weeks after recording 3 sacks apiece in games against Arkansas and Vanderbilt. After the season, he was named co-defensive. Sorry about that. There's motorcycles coming by. So in 2012, he was co-defensive player of the year with C.J. Mosley of the University of Alabama.
C.J. Mosley here.
Yeah, so he did get defensive player of the year, even if it was tied still. So as I was saying, he really was expected to go in the 3rd or 4th round pick. So not first rounder, right? But still, they expect him to go higher because of all of the stuff that he did in college. But again, his combine wasn't great. So the St. Louis Rams drafted Sam in the 7th round. Okay, so they drafted him in the 7th round, and he became the first publicly gay player to be drafted into the NFL.
Yeah.
The St. Louis Rams jerseys bearing his name became the 2nd best-selling rookie jerseys at the NFL's website, behind Cleveland Browns quarterback, Heisman winner at the time, Johnny Football.
Yeah. Johnny Football.
Yeah, he was
that guy.
Yeah, he was second.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
he was
guy.
second to. Yeah, his jersey's still second to that dude, right? And so so again, really important, right? Representation. We talk about that a lot, right? And so his jerseys, even as a rookie, before they even knew he was going to get a spot, was second behind Johnny Manziel, right? Johnny Football. But again, he went and he did kind of the preseasons, but he was not selected to stay with the team. So his position was waived. Unfortunately, and that's when he went on to play for the Canadian Football League, because he still obviously wanted to play football. And so he did not play a full season, unfortunately. He only did a few preseason games, and he was waived. So he went on to the Canadian Football League in 2014. But he didn't get to play a full season there either, because he was dealing with a lot of mental health issues. And so he decided that for his own mental health, that was better for him not to continue to pursue football. And so he retired officially, and now he just goes around as a spokesman, as an author, as a motivational speaker. Yeah. And so that's basically kind of what he does now. He supports a lot of the LGBTQ youth, right, to make sure that they, especially when it comes to sports, to feel more comfortable being themselves. He did win, right, the Arthur Ashe Courage Award at the ESPYs of 2014. Nice. And so, again, people do, even though he didn't get to play as much in the NFL as he should have. But, again, the mental health thing isn't new, right? We know it's come up a lot, right? The most famous is Naomi Osaka, as you know. She decided to pull out of the French Open and not deal with the press, because she felt like her mental health was more important. And so Michael Sam kind of went the same way. He felt like for himself, it was better for him to focus on himself as a person, continue to heal and grow, and do good works in that situation. So, again, I know he didn't play a regular football season, but still I feel like he needs recognition, because that is going to allow more players to be more comfortable with who they are. And, and become part of the NFL, being who they are without having to hide anything, and be okay with that. So, kids, if you're out there, again, be who you are. Don't be afraid. I know that sometimes, depending where you are, you might not have the best support opportunities, but a lot of us love you, we support you, and we want you to make it out of this. Okay. So again, Michael Sam, thank you for being a role model for a lot of boys and girls everywhere. And again, be comfortable in your skin.
Absolutely. Shout out to Michael Sam's. That definitely was a big movement, a big situation at the time, a big opportunity for him. And the big thing about it that made it so you knew it wasn't just like, oh, we're just putting somebody in the spot. We just need somebody to be the poster child.
He had the numbers.
He was beast.
He was
a monster. You know what I mean? Like you said, co-defensive player of the year. Nick?
So that does beg the question, though, and I know that, a lot of people, it's not a subject that everybody's comfortable talking about, but you've got to imagine that a guy like that who slips all the way to the 7th round, and to say that it didn't have anything to do with his sexuality,
right?
In a macho dominated NFL, I know, Ab obviously had an objection. He was saying that, but it's true. Like, you can't tell me that somebody with that kind of talent and somebody who was scouted heavily like that, you say, oh, the combine is. Okay, let's be honest. If you have your eye on somebody, the combine doesn't do jack for you anyway.
I agree.
Who cares if the guy can jump 40 feet in the air? Nobody cares about that.
Right.
Sure, some people might, but there's a lot there, and obviously you can't prove anything, and not on a doubt, whatever.
I agree.
But again, he was the 100%. First guy to openly admit that he was gay. He was the first guy to openly say, "I'm proud of who I am. This is who I am."
Kissed his
fiancé.
That's the other thing, Nick. That was huge.
Well, sure it was.
When he was selected,
he kissed him, and that.
Well, yeah. That was his other half. That's his. That's who he's with.
You do.
That's what you do, right? You kiss your other half, don't you? Just because it happened to be another guy doesn't mean that was any less for him.
I get it, and I'm not. Look, I am not like you said last week.
I know you're not.
I'm not
but
it was those. It was the optics, though. A lot.
Of course it was. Come on.
Yeah, I remember watching that, and I remember kind of being taken aback, but then I'm like, why am I feeling some type of
It's something you're not used to seeing, but it does.
And there's a lot of people that were just kind of just.
Exactly.
Like, what are we?
He's coming from a conservative state, conservative
Texas.
College. Like he literally went to Mizzou, who fought for a long time, as we know, to keep a certain mascot.
You know the old joke. There's only two things with horns in Texas. So.
Again,
exactly. Yes, exactly. So
we don't.
That's what I'm saying.
He never shared what the mental health issues were and why he decided.
And that's the thing.
And we probably have an idea of what the issues were that he was struggling with, but we don't want to make.
You could probably guess, but you don't want to.
And,
you don't want to speculate, but yeah.
And this is why we need to make sure when we're talking about the NFL and the strides that they're making with women, with Black and Latinx and other people of color, and making sure that they're being hired. I think this is another focus area that they really need to work on. Now I know that we had a out lesbian coach. Right, who played for the 49ers, which, by the way, she was rehired by the NFL, but we'll talk about that next time. So, again, I feel like that's an area that the NFL needs to work on, is your LGBTQ plus connections. So, if you're out there, NFL, or really, this is where you need to start bridging that gap. Yep. We need to make sure that if you're talking about inclusion and equity and you're saying I want to be about it, it needs to be everyone.
Yeah.
And it needs to be a safe space for everyone.
Yeah.
People need to be comfortable being themselves. The fact that a lot of times you spent time defending abusers for decades, basically since your inception, you have protected abusers.
Yeah.
Across the board, abusers and sexual assaulters. I think it's time for you to you really want to be taken as, oh, I'm a woke organization now, then you need to do better for your LGBTQ plus viewers. You need to do better so that people feel comfortable being themselves in their skin, and that they can't kiss their significant other on camera because that's a person they love without that affecting their playability.
Right.
So
You're absolutely right.
Do better, be better, and really make sure you're putting your money where your mouth is and making sure that these kids that you're trying to like support and make sure they go into sports, that they don't feel uncomfortable being who they are.
Exactly. And just like Anthony's saying, you know, I don't think he was ready for the level of scrutiny that was going to undergo once he made that revelation.
I agree.
And it wore on him heavily.
I agree.
And,
I think so.
Know, I mean,
I agree with you, Anthony. I think exactly. Yeah.
And see, and this is kind of what I was kind of leaning towards earlier when I was thinking about this, is that I remember the story. You remember the story about Richie Incognito, that offensive lineman for the Dolphins, and he picked on the other guy, and the other guy was more just soft spoken. You know what I mean? And that, you know, like what Anthony says is right. You know, they came after him when he was that open with it. He became a target, not only a rookie target, but just a target in general.
In general, yeah.
You know what I mean? So
for sure.
And as I was saying, I'm going to put it out there again. He's not just gay; he's a gay black man.
Right.
So again, like that's a whole.
And look, and not to go too deep in there, but his boyfriend at the time was a white man.
Right.
And it was an interracial kiss on national television.
So again, there's a lot going on there, right? There's a lot going on.
Right. It was a lot to take in at one time. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, but look, hey. Again, this is Pride Month. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Delilah, on this week's episode of Diversity with Delilah Michael Sams. And I absolutely love that because, like you said, it's great to highlight these parts because they are so open. They're able to be free to actually come out and speak their piece and tell about themselves. But there's a lot of players that if you have to really do your research on to find out that, you know, they lived some different lifestyles. They weren't open with it at the time. I go back, I think of Jackie Smith, our tight end for Washington in the 70s. He was a closeted gay man. Some of the guys on the team knew, and they protected his secrets.
Interesting you said that because he did come up when I was doing my research.
Yeah.
But and listen, again, if you are in the closet, I understand why you are. You come out at your own time or don't. Yeah. But he was gay, but he kept that to himself. You're